Border crisis. Mexican military fires on U.S. Border Patrol. Why is Obama silent?
Live from the room of Mirror Studio, you're listening to Foster Brothers on Point. Turn your selector switch to the fire position. The show is now live. I'm Hayes Foster. My brother Stephen Foster is here with me. We're the Foster Brothers. We're your hosts for the show. As Stephen just mentioned, tonight we're going to talk about the Mexican military crossing over the Arizona border into the interior of the United States and firing on Border Patrol agents. I've got a headline here, Act of War, Mexican military crosses border, fires on U.S. This is from tpnn.com. Looks just a few little excerpts from this article. Looks like on last Thursday, the Mexican military flew over in a helicopter and fired on Border Patrol agents. Officials in Mexico contacted U.S. officials to apologize. Stephen, what do you think about this?
Well, this happened on the San Miguel Gate, which is near the Odom Indian Nation Gate area along the U.S.-Mexican border. Apparently, the agents were unarmed, were on U.S. soil, and the helicopters came over into U.S. airspace, fired multiple shots at the U.S. Border Patrol agents, and then promptly returned back to Mexican airspace.
All right, I'm going to read the U.S. Constitution right now. Not the whole thing, just Article 4, Section 4. The United States shall guarantee every state in this union a republic form of government, and shall protect each of them against invasion and on the application of the legislature or the executive against domestic violence. And I really want to emphasize where it said protect them against invasion. Stephen, do we have a blatant derelict of duty from the executive office, the legislature, the Congress just not acting on this? I mean, I know, no one wants to go to war with Mexico because it'd be kind of no contest. However, there should be repercussions for the Mexican military flying over and firing on U.S. Border Patrol.
Well, what I'm upset about is just how Obama hasn't even made a statement. Like he made a statement when his son Trayvon Martin was killed, but he won't make a statement.
He's not claiming that son, though.
Okay.
If he had a son, he might look like him, remember?
Oh, that's right. Okay. I got confused for a second. I thought that might have been his son.
No.
So, he loves to make these statements about stupid stuff all the time. That's your President Obama, but here we are. We're sitting here with a military aircraft coming in U.S. airspace, firing at U.S. agents, and there's no repercussions. There's no statement.
There's no press conference.
Yeah, there's nothing even like if they had their way, they would have brushed it on the rug. The problem, or not the problem, the good thing is independent media sources are reporting this, and they have the eyewitness accounts of this, and nothing's being done. This is ridiculous.
I'm just going to read the end of this article from tpnn.com. Meanwhile, as U.S. Border Patrol agents are contending with increased attacks by the Mexican military on American soil, they are increasingly being taken away from their patrol duties to babysit and tend to tens of thousands of illegal alien children who are crossing the border into the interior of the United States. So, that's what we're dealing with. We've got Mexican military firing on U.S. Border Patrol. A lot of the Border Patrol apparently have been picking up all these children that have been flowing in from Central America into the States. A lot of people think that's orchestrated, which apparently the newspapers down there are saying that if you make it to America, you just automatically get amnesty. That's not true at the moment. It may be an unspoken policy because you know how a lot of big businesses and certain parties like cheap labor and cheap voters that can be bought.
I just have to wonder, what prompted the Mexican military. I seriously doubt that, it was just some rogue military, firing their guns. There might have been a scenario where there was a smuggling operation. Maybe there was some high-profile people they were trying to get across the border. Maybe a shipment of guns.
Maybe some meth.
It might have been a big drug run where they were trying to either divert attention or be sure that shipment got across the border. Because as we do know, the military government in Mexico is corrupt.
Well, we know that money can buy off a lot of political officials. Even in the United States, we see that a lot. I haven't been to Mexico in years, but it seems like they could probably be bought off pretty easily down there by cartel money.
Yeah, let's go to the clip of Oprah actually talking about this incident. Oh wait, there's no clip because she didn't say anything.
Oh yeah, Oprah is a globalist. She's probably all for the open borders policy that we have adopted, and possibly the North American Union, where they want to merge the United States of America into Canada and Mexico.
It seems like a lot of the people that should be saying something are not saying something right now about this incident.
I've got another article in front of me, Tubbs. Texas ranchers under attack. This is from National Review Online. This article is by Ryan Lovelace. We got a rancher, Ronnie Osborne, and he was going to do an interview. Well, he did do the interview, but it just so happened that very day before the interview, and by the way, he's in Brooks County, Texas, he left for about 45 minutes. When he returned, someone had trashed his house. The trespasser shattered his gun case, leaving a trail of blood throughout the house, but dropped the guns near the kitchen before scattering out the back door. They had searched through the house, opened drawers, and even left a heap of uncooked bacon in the frying pan. So the ranchers on the border towns have been dealing with the illegal invasion for a long time, and you can see the lawlessness here has gone to another level. If you go after a man's bacon, you're stepping over the line.
We're looking at a dire situation to where the U.S. Congress, the executive branch, they're totally ignoring their responsibilities. There's multiple instances constantly occurring. We have an invasion on the border, be it children, a lot of them in gangs and, carrying TB and multiple diseases that most Americans would be vaccinated for, just driving it straight across the border, no big deal. And it's barely even getting any media attention, not to be honest with you. Like, it's in the news, but they're actually coming against people speaking up against this. Like, there's many protests, and there was an incident in California where a town diverted a bus where they were trying to ship the illegals from Texas into California, and they turned them around, and it was a protest. But the attitude from CNN is like, who are these people protesting? They're anti-human. Well, look, I care for all human beings, but we have laws for a reason.
And if you don't have a border, you don't have a country. You're dealing with lawlessness coming from the executive branch on many, many things. They aren't enforcing the border laws just because it's easier to let them flow in. Hey, they might be a voter eventually. How about that?
Well, I think we all know that's kind of their strategy here, and there's a lot of analysts that they're saying that's exactly what this is about. This is shoring up the Democratic Party vote.
It very possibly could. I'm also looking at an article here from Breitbart.com. Houston, Texas, an unaccompanied minor from Central America who entered the U.S. illegally has been confirmed as having the swine flu, also known as H1N1. So it looks like we've got not only an invasion of illegal aliens and children illegals, but they're bringing over some gifts for Americans. H1N1, I've heard reports of scabies coming over. It looks like they just want to keep that flow of illegal and underpaid workers and more diseases for the average citizen. How about that?
Well, that's right. Our staff tried to contact Nancy Pelosi's office after she made her visit to Texas last week, and our question for Nancy Pelosi was, does she now have lice and scabies? They did not answer that request. We're still waiting on the request to find out if Nancy Pelosi does in fact have scabies.
Well, you can definitely confirm that she has some mental problems. What was her famous statement? We have to pass the bill to find out what's in the bill. And she was talking about Obamacare at the time. I think that's mental incompetence. Just, I'm not a licensed professional in that field, but it looks like she's got some problems.
I really can't imagine, it being worse than making a statement like that. And the fact that she holds public office, she should have been, ejected, impeached if possible, out of her seat immediately for a statement like that.
Now, I do want to jump back to the situation at Ronnie Osborne's ranch in Texas, Brooks County, Texas. What I'm looking at here from National Review Online, and this is a quote: Border Patrol agents carrying AR-15s and 12-gauge pumps searched the property with Osborne, who also had an AR-15, looking for any signs of the trespassers. After scanning his backyard, Osborne discovered 3 shoes left behind. The Border Patrol agents said they expected the burglars were less than a mile away. Welcome to South Texas, Osborne tells the interviewer. So apparently these attacks are increasing with the frequency. It looks like everything's being ramped up.
Well, if you live in South Texas, you don't live in the United States, but you don't also live in Mexico. You kind of live in this no man's land where the U.S. federal government's not going to protect you, but you don't get any assistance from the Mexican government, so what are you to do if you live in that area?
Well, they're also saying that when mowing the lawn, Osborne says, ranchers in South Texas always need a pistol. And this is a quote from Mr. Osborne. Down here, there's no question. Oh, was it loaded? Osborne says. Well, hell yeah, it's loaded. Why have a gun if it's not loaded? And the safety is off too. That's the way we live. Looks like you can't even mow the yard down there because of threat of criminals coming from south of the border.
Well, we have large numbers coming across the border because the word is now out. And that's why this is happening. Obama hasn't made a major effort to put the word out that this is not occurring, because as long as Obama is saying, oh, well, we do have closed borders, but his organization's Department of Homeland Security is shipping busloads of illegals to multiple parts of the United States, that sends a different message. So he's speaking on both sides of his mouth. Typical politics right here.
Yeah, Obama, he could be tried on many counts of treason at this point. Just another derelict of duty here. The ranchers in the border towns are also saying that the OTMs, which means other than Mexicans, are becoming more hostile. And this is another quote from the article. Mike Vickers, a doctor who lives on a ranch a few miles north on the opposite side of Border Patrol checkpoint, says he has had his home broken into also. He says that in 1 week he had to pull his gun 3 times. 2 of those times, he says, he wasn't sure whether or not he'd have to pull the trigger. We're fighting a war here, and we've been fighting it for a long time, says Mike Vickers. These people we're encountering here are combative. So not only are they swimming the Rio Grande, but they're breaking into ranchers' homes. They're stealing property. They're destroying property. They're combative. I know, the whole, Mexican War was settled in the 1800s, but like I said earlier, if you don't have a border, do you really have a country if you just let it flow on over?
Well, it's this whole thing of La Raza. This is a whole following among the Hispanics, especially in Mexico, to where they say, our country, our race. They think that Texas is Mexico. They think that the United States stole it. So when they come across that border, they don't respect it as if it was a different land, as if it's been settled for the past 200 plus years. They can't have that respect. They just think it's still their land. So when they come across and enter the ranchers' homes and property, they don't treat it as if, they're visitors. They treat it as if it's theirs, and that's why this is occurring.
All right, we're going to take a commercial break. Everybody hold on. Foster Brothers on Point would like to thank MyOneSupply.com for making the show possible. MyOneSupply.com, suppliers of fine firearm and tactical gear. MyOneSupply.com carries Magpul, Everly Stock, Trigicon, EOTech, and many more top-shelf brands. MyOneSupply.com offers genuine military surplus and survival items. From the battlefield to your front door, check out MyOneSupply.com. And for a limited time, at checkout, enter promo code TACZONE for 10% off. That's TACZONE.
So there was this bus that came through, and it was trying to get to California, and Marietta was the town, and the citizens came forward. And what was interesting was a lot of the people that were there to protest were actually, Hispanic descendants, probably, second generation or maybe even first generation from Mexico. They're standing there with signs, telling them to get back because they may have actually come across legally. There's a lot of people that immigrate all the time legally, and it's just part of our culture. We're the melting pot of the world because we do accept immigration. However, when busloads come across of illegals and they're just going to dump it off in a town, even the immigrants that did it legally are protesting this. That makes a big statement.
Yeah, it's a problem when you let people just flow over, because the ones that are filling out the paperwork, going through the waiting period, getting background checks done, immigrating by the law of the United States of America, it makes them mad when they see people just flowing in, not paying taxes, lowering the wages overall because they work for subpar wages. That bothers legal people who've immigrated this country. That's a great point. They're fired up too. Apparently, everybody's so fascinated with reality TV right now, they don't realize we're being invaded, and then they scratch their heads when they drive through town and see the doors closing on local businesses and factories. They just can't figure it out.
Well, one of the problems, I was looking at a report where they did an independent study, and they said the job creations in the U.S. from 2000 to 2014 currently equaled the percent or the number of immigrants. So you could say that every job that was created in the United States since 2000, there was also an immigrant that entered into this nation. So that in theory, that could have taken that job. So there's actually net zero growth for the past 14 years because of our immigration problem. There is an issue here. And even the illegals that came across and now settled even realize it, and they want the other people to quit because they know it's affecting jobs. The illegals currently can't find enough work. The people that have lived here for generations that came across on the Mayflower and, the whole original group of people that came across from England, they've realized that there's no jobs. Our generations are slowly not able to find work. It's a major problem. The immigrants even can't even find work. It's ridiculous.
It is shocking. Nearly 250 bodies have been recovered in Brooks County since 2012, and those are of illegal immigrants just trying to cross the terrain in Brooks County, Texas. What people don't realize is, you've got people coming from the third world, sometimes Central America, some of these countries, and they are not equipped. Maybe they have a bottle of water, maybe they fill it up at the Rio Grande after, because the Rio Grande is the border. Maybe, they get into a situation where they're hiking around, they don't know exactly where they're at, Maybe they didn't have the money to pay their coyote guide, and they're on their own, and they die out in the heat. I mean, this terrain, apparently, from what I'm reading here, is very harsh. The temperatures are extremely high in the summertime. The vegetation is extremely thick. Let's see here. I mean, it really looks like that people are just dying, just trying to get over.
Well, one thing we haven't even brought up was the whole CDC issue, where there's been multiple media organizations that have sent reporters down to the South Texas area to witness what's going on, and after interviewing some of the border agents, they're talking about there's multiple cases of TB, scabies, lice, H1N1, as you mentioned earlier. Where is the CDC in this? Well, apparently they initially were doing no comment. We're not doing anything down there. Well, it's come out this week that, in fact, they're in a heightened state because of this. Now, I don't know where their presence is at. It might just be some formality that they're running in their offices where we're on heightened alert, because we know that there's a lot of immigrants coming in with these diseases that should spread. Not a very good thing to have going on. So that's another problem that we're facing, is just the health factors associated with this immigration. It's not just that the U.S. economy is trashed currently. We don't need any more immigrants because it's just taking a job away from someone that's already established here. We don't need them over here because it's going to depress our economy even worse. Now we've got the health issues. We've got the Mexican military firing shots across the border, but no one's taking action. Now, I know Obama would love to take action, and his action would be amnesty. Well, screw that.
Yeah, amnesty's not the... why would you reward someone for lawlessness? And how can you, as a Department of Homeland Security, pick and choose what laws you want to enforce? Because DHS is running, ICE now. So they're very aware of what's going on. Many people think that this is a typical overwhelm the system to destroy the system and then bring in, your version of totalitarian fascism, which we're on the road to it right now. I know a lot of people think that we're dealing, we have a capitalistic society. I'd say we really haven't had capitalism since the early 1900s.
Well, there's a whole other thing that we're missing the boat on here, is we know for a fact that they're taking the illegals and they're busing them and dumping them in the United States, which is totally ridiculous. But that costs money. I mean, I don't know what a ticket costs to ship from Texas to California, to Tennessee, to Rhode Island, to Maine. I don't know what those tickets cost, but, they're probably in the order of $10 to $20 a ticket. We've got law enforcement managing it. We've got detention centers. The price is adding up. There's a report that I was looking at by Kit Daniels from Infowars.com, where he's saying that just recently that they've tallied that it's $1.3 million a week currently just on handling this crisis.
Out of control. We don't have that money. That's
a lot of money that we're just blowing because they're coming across the border. Why can't we build a fence? I'm sitting here looking. I've been to D.C. and I've been around, and I noticed that I couldn't actually walk up to the White House. You know why? Because there's a fence. I couldn't get across that freaking fence to walk up to the White House. So why don't we have one down on the border?
The reason they don't want that border fence, there's a lot of reasons. Whether it's the cheap labor flowing across, whether it's a potential voter flowing across for whatever party can lie to them the best. What we are dealing with is the implementation of the North American Union, and this is part of the New World Order, and just if you don't think that there is a New World Order, or you think that's a conspiracy, we happen to have a clip from former CIA Director George Bush Sr., and here it is.
we have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Oh, and in case you missed it, did you hear the United Nations mentioned? Something just came out this week about the United Nations. They're going to intervene in Detroit because people don't want to pay their water bills. And the reason they don't want to pay their water bills is because they're used to getting everything free anyway from various entitlement programs. So the UN is going to intervene and save the day. Tubbs, what do you think about that?
It doesn't surprise me one bit. You know, I look at Michigan and I look at Detroit and all the major cities, whether it's Grand Rapids, Flint, Detroit, they're all failing. You know, it's a union area up there, and the unions really is what destroyed it, but everyone's moved out, and they're trying to take jobs down in the South. You know, a lot of the automotive manufacturers are down in, you know, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee now, no unions. And my question was, why did other businesses not try to, you know, take up and take cheap rent on these manufacturing facilities that already exist up in Michigan? Well, the quick answer to that is no one wants to start a business where they're going to have to deal with the unions, because that just means they're going to have to pay, you know, $30 to $40 wages when they could get it for 15 to 20 down in the South.
And a lot of people may think, well, you know, what do you have against unions? I think unions were good early on in the 1900s in this country. Unfortunately, they've gotten to the point where they hinder production at companies now. So they're not really for the worker as they used to be, because they do take their dues. And, you know, a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm protected, I'm in the union. Well, sometimes they can't protect you, and it's just they're not as significant as they used to be when they were needed in the early 1900s.
But what we're seeing, though, is it's just general entitlement programs that have taken over. All the hard workers have left Detroit, and now you've got the entitlement class left there, and Detroit is a failing city, and it's just a matter of time. I don't know if it's a year or two, but I think Detroit's going to fall flat on its face.
Well, Stephen, the UN's going to show up. They're going to save the day.
That's right, and clarify that. You know, what are they actually saying about this?
I just want to know where they're getting this water, because apparently these people aren't paying their water bills, and they're saying they're going to shut off, you know, quite a few customers. But the UN will intervene. I don't know if they're bringing cases of bottled water. I don't know if they're bringing M16s. I really don't. That's the whole thing. They haven't clarified what they're doing. I haven't heard any politicians say we object to the UN, you know, because they are just another hand of the New World Order. I don't know what they're going to do. I guess we're going to watch this play out, Stephen.
I've got an answer. It's called work camps. Let's put them into work camps, and they can work off their water bills.
Oh, you mean the FEMA camps that are supposedly a conspiracy that they're now housing illegal aliens at?
That's right. That is a conspiracy theory. And you really need to quit talking about conspiracy theories, because we are on air.
Oh. Did I hit a trigger word? Do you think the NSA is going to monitor this?
Absolutely. The point being, though, is our economy's trashed. The growth is fake. There's no growth. And the immigration problem is ridiculous, and it has to be addressed. This is an impeachable moment for Obama. Obama needs to be impeached now. I think that this is an official call to the legislatures up there in D.C. Let's go ahead and get it started.
Yeah, let's throw this fraudster out on his butt. He never should have got in anyway. He's got questionable background. This guy, no one even knows anything any more about him than he was, you know, when he was running for his first campaign. The guy's a fraud. He's a phony. He's fake. Just get him out of there.
Let's just not vote for Hillary either. You know, Hillary is part of the NAFTA GAP program, so, you know, she's just as bad.
And we're going to wind this show down tonight. We're We appreciate everybody listening. It's July 3rd, 2014, and everybody be safe for July 4th tomorrow. Thanks for listening to Foster Brothers on Point. Tune in next week. Thank you.